I play Davie Balfour, who's a 19-year-old orphan boy, and we meet him at the top of the play, and he is looking for his minister, who he thinks is his new guardian, because the story picks up the same week where his dad dies, and his mother's already passed away. So we meet Davie, someone who's just lost and vulnerable, doesn't know what's going on. He meets the minister, fairly quickly finds out that he's also lost his house, so he has nothing left in this town. He is presented with a letter from his father. In the letter it says, you've got an uncle and there's this family secret. You need to go out there, kid, figure out what this is all about. And he's at a bit of crossroads when he discovers that, because the minister's like, go, 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 so I don't have to look after you. He's wondering whether he should stay in the town, see out the end of his days and live like everybody else does in the village, or go out there, see what's out there for him. Find the purpose of his existence, really. He's excited to see what's out there for him, but it's very quickly shut down when he realises that outside the village isn't actually as safe as what he thought, and people are strange, and they're after him for some reason. In Act 1, he sort of goes through a lot of like, this is what I need to do, and it's totally ripped from him. And then the only sense of security that he finds is in Alan, pretty much from his entrance.
So yeah, I play Alan Breck Stewart, and we meet Alan as he is trying to get back to France, because he is in support of the Stuart King, who is in exile. But Alan's purpose in life is to go between Scotland and France, taking money to support the crown, to support who he believes is the rightful King of Scotland. It's 6 years after the Jacobite Rebellion of 45. Scotland isn't a safe place for Alan. Trying to smuggle yourself between France and Scotland on ships isn't a safe place, and he just constantly exists in that sort of world of tension, and meets Davie at the point where he's been, spoiler alert, kidnapped, where he sees this person who is out of his depth in a completely different environment to where he perhaps belongs. I think that's the pull for Alan. That's what changes in clouds, that sort of super objective of, this is what I exist to do, and I am a soldier on a mission. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden there's something different and different feelings.
The rehearsal process for me was quite stoppy-starty, because there's so much to cram into the wings and backstage, and people have to do. I mean, there's people in this show that are just, everyone in the show is playing instruments, getting changed at the same time, singing whilst they're getting rid of that instruments, and all the rest of it is mental. Like, I didn't realise that I need to play showing how exhausted he is in this space, and I don't get to go off and then come back on and show that, like, a different, there's days went by or whatever, apart from one time, I think. So I have to physically show the difference between Davie at the start, in the middle, and the end. And I kind of lost sight of that during the rehearsal process, because I was thinking about, right, what does this mean? What's that going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then I had a conversation about thinking about just going back to basics, where have you come from, and what is it? Where are you going? And then it was the more that I got the lines down and I felt more comfortable, I could start to sort of show that physicality. And I think playing the sort of vulnerable position at the start, he's kind of like hunchback and blah, blah, blah. Just keeping in mind that he is walking for days. He's not jumping in a taxi and getting to these places. Like, he's walking for days. And it was just a reminder for me. It was Gareth that said it. It was just like, just remember, like, what is actually happening here. And it sounds so obvious, but when a rehearsal process is quite stoppy-starting, you can't sort of connect it all until you're running it. You know what I mean? It's like, it was just one of those like light bulb moments. I was going, oh yeah, this guy is knackered. And then we see like a total shift at the very end of the play, where we see Davie again, and he's upright, he's tall, and he's proud of his life that he's got and all the rest of it. So physicality was a big thing for me, and making sure that absolutely lands, as well as like playing the emotion on the line and stuff like that, and keeping the pace of the show alive. Because I think if Davie falls into this really slow, like lethargic state, it could slow the whole thing down pretty much. I quickly realised that I don't go off the stage, or very rarely. So like during that process of being in the room, a lot of work went into transitions and all the rest of it, and I was sort of like, I get to relax a little bit, but then I quickly realised that as soon as all this stuff sort of merges together, I feel like I'm running a marathon, you know what I mean? So, which is great for Davie because he needs to look like he's exhausted and tired, and me and Ryan is exhausted and tired by the end of the show. But
as soon as we auditioned, we read together in a recall, and we literally had 5 minutes with a piece of script because I couldn't stay any longer. I was rehearsing another show, and so it was just kind of thrown together and feel like so much of what we did instinctively, because we just had the words in front of us and all you can do is focus on the words and there's no time for any of that preparation, is still in now, 10 weeks into this rehearsal and running in the process, and
I think
that's testament to actually just looking at the piece of writing you have in front of you and going, okay,
playing that,
this is, I'll find the beats and I'll find what to feel in what I'm saying and how it's received, and it doesn't always have to be this sort of massive cogs turning in the background and then it's so freeing.
It's a good lesson of just seeing it, throwing yourself in there and just sort of playing it for about figuring it out as it's happening, as opposed to putting in so much.
And I thought I would be going back to the book and looking at scenes that we were doing and going, well, how is it in the book and how is Alan there? And am I going to be like someone was in the film or any of these other portrayals? And it's actually just so nice to be free of that, to look at this as an adaptation that is unashamedly different and new and unique, in so many ways.
The things with the cuts as well, I think it was just about getting rid of the air in between stuff and things that might be funny but not necessarily adding to the point of the overall story. Isabel's very good at just making it slick and pacey and getting through it and doing the thoughts on the line, and so there was a lot of stuff that just didn't really need to be in it, or the stuff that's still in it but it's just shortened down and condensed and you're still getting the exact same story, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the thing about jokes can be funny and move the story along, and they serve their place in the piece. But if something is just funny and makes the audience laugh but it doesn't move the story, then you're pausing the story for a beat. And this is the sort of show that relies on that, the energy and the fast-paced nature of it, those beats coming thick and fast and one after the other, so that when there is a big dramatic moment, you can suddenly have pauses and gaps, and that air is charged as a result of the sort of high octane thrill ride that you're trying to take an audience on. And so it affords you time as actors to really celebrate intimate moments and not leave people going, well, we know what's going to happen now and we're just waiting for the inevitable. It can really feel like, okay, well, this could go either way because there's an energy to it. The excitement of Clooney's is a scene that as an example that changed dramatically from the first iteration to getting it on its feet, what we thought it would be, and then the sort of set piece that it finally became. And I think it takes a lot of bravery as a creative team to make such substantial changes at that point in a process, because it's intimidating as actors to feel like parts of a show or parts of a track are changing so dramatically when you feel like you don't even have a handle on the rest of the show, the stuff that's staying the same yet. So to make the choice to do that, but also to kind of kill your darlings in a sense of going, well, we really like the idea of this bit, or we really like what this could be, but actually we're not gonna realize it in the way that we wanted to. Whether that's because of time constraints, or whether that's because of people's quick changes that they need to do, or whether the beats just aren't quite landing, or the jokes just aren't quite funny enough, or it's not quite having the effect. So being able to go, rather than constantly trying to tinker and make the thing work, to just go, okay, step back, what can we do that's going to have an effect and is going to get the same same story beats across, you know, show the same parts of the narrative that we need to give to the audience,
Yeah.
but do that in a more economical way in terms of rehearsing a show as well as.
Because that Clooney scene was so much longer than what it is now,
very
but
long.
because of the pace of the show up until that point, it still really lands, doesn't it? It's still like, it's still what it was, but it's just totally shot, like
Yeah.
totally shot and down.
And people ask how faithful do we think it is, or feel that we're being to the source material, and I think it's actually a less complex answer than it can seem on the face of it, because the change should be expected. An audience aren't coming in for a rehearsed reading of a novel, and I don't think we would be packing the house in the way that we are if that was the case. And I
Yeah.
don't think the laughter would be there. I don't think the heart would be there, because a novel is it's a personal experience, and 10 people can, you know, read the same novel, and in that sample size you will have 10 different opinions on what certain moments meant, because we relate to things in different ways.
The key moment is, for his first one would be making the decision to leave the town. Like that's the point of, that's what kicks the thing off. Do you know what I mean? He can live this life, or he could totally just for once in his life get his shoes on and get out there. And it ends up being the right thing to do. The second point is, I would say, for Davie in the cabin, where it's the first time we see him being honest about who he is and his feelings, and being able to express that to someone, because he's just not the type of person that would do that and totally shy away from it. And he just says, there's something about you, no idea what it is, but there's something there that I trust. And I think for that moment, it's like, for Davie's growth, it's sort of the point where he's given into how he's feeling, and he's just like, oh, do you know what, here it is. And again, it works. They both realise that, well, for Davie, he needs Alan there, first of all, to get him out of this situation. And then also after that, find in him something that he can latch onto and keep in his life, because he wants him there, because he's feeling something towards him. And then I think for Alan, it's Davie saves his life at one point, and that's kind of like a big thing for being the military man that Alan is, and that sort of thing.
Saves his life at more than one point, really.
Yeah, yeah.
The silver button and the passing of that, and the moment in, you know, it's the flip of his cavalier attitude putting him in genuine mortal danger. The whole season is pointing his own gun at him. There is nowhere to go. He can't jump into the ocean. This is like, it's game over, and sort of playing that first moment as an acceptance of, I've gone too far this time, and this is it, and I'm going to meet the end. And to suddenly be lifted out of that, to be saved by this person that he's just met, who went along with this pact. So, you know, it's that whole, it's quite an extended beat, but it's culminating in the button, and that we had to give that such significance, because it's such a driving force in their relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's the symbol of that pact between Alan and Davie, and living as a soldier in this kind of guerrilla warfare, and kind of chooses to dine out on that for the rest of the time that he spends with Davie. If it's like, well, I can treat you however I want, because we made that pact, and we've sworn to do this, and so I'm going to have us framed for the murder of someone, and we're going to be hanged, and that's fine. And but you have to come with me, because we made that pact.
We've got the silver button.
This is how it goes. You've got the button. I'll get you anything you need. Don't worry about it. You know, in those arguments, and Alan pushing everything was to lead up to that moment of now we're going to break the pact. And after Clooney's, that being broken, that's almost a fate worse than death.
Davie is such an emotional person, but he's very good at going away and coming back and being like, oh, actually, you know, like the clearing scene and then making the decision to help you when you've been captured and stuff like that. He's raging, but he can go away and realise the bigger picture, and it actually brings a different sort of, like Davie is. Davie is quite sensible, and I mean he's totally naive and he trusts the wrong people, but I think he's got that sense where if I trust this person that's really, really liking me back and trust me back, then that is an absolute okay thing for me to let go of, for Davie to let go of the emotions and again help him out. Do you know what I mean? So, and in that moment of button, I'm sure Davie would have went, oh, I've just chucked the button to him, I'm away. I shouldn't have chucked the button to him. Damn it, why did I chuck the button to him? I really want that button back. You know, Alan, where are you? And then, you know, when Alan gives Davie the button back, it's just like oh my, right, okay, I'm sorry again, you know, I'm an idiot. And I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been speaking to the thing. So that button alone plays a massive part in our journey, and it's such a good visual representation of a reminder of actually what it is that we've got.
A show can be intellectual, but also something that people can take at face value. And I think Isabel understands that, and that's
Totally,
what
yeah.
she strives for. You could have people who absolutely loved the story and loved different adaptations of the, you know, from the TV show or films that existed, and they're getting little gags that are just for them. And also, you could not know anything about it and go in and absolutely love it because it's a riot. This could be your first night at the theatre or your 100th night at the theatre. You like it should be for everyone.
All I ever knew on the